Good evening. The opinions and statements voiced by our guests do not necessarily reflect the opinions of this network. Enjoy the shows.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, Birmingham, Alabama.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army. Army officers say the missile, found sometime last week, has been inspected at Roswell, New Mexico, and sent to Wright Field, Ohio, for further inspection.
Now, historic films made in the spring of 1948 and just released show Eniwetok preparing for heavily guarded and still largely secret tests of new atomic weapons. The test's purpose is to measure atomic effects on thousands of different materials, 30,000 tons of them, not, as at Bikini, to prove military effectiveness.
San Francisco police say that 9 persons have been arrested in a narcotics raid on the headquarters of the Grateful Dead, a widely popular singing group. 2 members of the group, Rod McKernan and Robert Weir, and their business manager, Danny Rifkin, have been booked on suspicion of possessing narcotics.
3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff. 32 minutes past the hour. Liftoff on Apollo 11. Tower cleared.
Okay, we got a roll program. Neil Armstrong reporting the roll and pitch program, which puts Apollo 11 on a proper heading.
I'm going to step off the limb now. That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Well, strange lights are causing a viral buzz on YouTube. Could we have caught extraterrestrial activity on a recent newscast? Brandon Arroyo investigates.
As the newscast ended, the controversy began back on September 26th. What is that light shining in the back of the dark night sky?
With coverage reaching all the way back to 1948, for over 70 years, Fate magazine has brought you reports of the strange and unknown, all of them true. Now, Fate Magazine Radio is carrying on that tradition of setting the standard in paranormal talk radio as we report and discuss some of the most mysterious and perplexing phenomena imaginable in this strange world of ours. Now, here is your host of Fate Magazine Radio, Kat Hobson.
Good evening. Thank you so much for being here. You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, and we are Fate Mag Radio, the online voice of Fate Magazine, in business since 1948. Just a year behind Roswell, right? Before we get started, I wanted to say that I know there are a lot of people that think it's inappropriate to do it, but I don't really care. Our president is under treatment for COVID, and no matter how he didn't believe in a mask and he didn't believe in this, and you know what, things have been coming back and forth all over the place anyway, but he's sick and he represents every one of us. And I've seen a lot of people wishing, praying for the virus, wishing well for the virus. I know a lot of light workers and energy workers who are saying this, and you can't do that because it comes back on you for one thing, and for another, it's unkind. Everybody has their issues. I don't see my candidate on my ballot. So, you know what? It just is that you are going to feel so bad later. And I know it's been, almost 4 years of anger and vitriol and no matter what. But it's okay to let that go when someone is sick. So it's just so time to come together as a people instead of being ruled by the, talking heads and stuff. So that's my 2 cents worth. And, a little love and prayers never hurts anybody. And let's do this. I am so excited to bring you just a wonderful guest. I know that some of y'all have heard him. I've been interviewing him since at least 2017. I am one of his biggest cheerleaders. I think that he really does rock anybody's boat that gets the chance to hear him and understand what it is that he is doing. He wrote 3 books initially, and 4. But at any rate, he wrote the They Are Here series, which is really interesting. He started with the East Coast U.S., Central U.S., and Western U.S. And that was documenting the kind of craft, the experiences had with those craft, and things of that nature. He wrote a really great book, Going Interstellar. Why do I have a brain block on that? I wrote the foreword for this book. And I don't even have it written down in front of me because I was so certain that I knew it. See, never be positive, because you will only prove that you are positively forgetful. But at any rate, he really did change my world with his information, because I was not that into the actual nuts and bolts of ufology, right? I wanted to talk to the experiencers, the abductees. I wanted to learn what it was like to be one of them, or how they felt. And when I met Tom, everything kind of fit together. And yes, someone in chat says that this man has more maps in his life than anyone they've ever seen. So my guest is Tom Conwell, author of 6 books, forensic patterns researcher, and I'm telling you, he's good at it. And all around excellent ufologist and excellent friend. So Tom, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me again, Kat. This is always fun with you.
I think so too. I just love it when you get a chance to come on. And I'm going to tell you, I already told you, I'm going to tell our listeners, his new book, Earthquakes and UFOs, The Links Aren't What You Think, has the most beautiful cover. Absolutely the most beautiful color. And the artwork is just eye-catching. If you see it on the shelves of Barnes & Noble or Books A Million or wherever you go, it's going to catch your eye. And the information in it is better even than the cover. So I am so glad that you're here, Tom. So, and I apologize for losing my mind on Going Interstellar. Plans first.
You weren't the only one. I did that the last time we talked.
Oh, did you? Yes.
Yeah, I couldn't remember the name of the book. I mean, I had just written the thing,
I know.
It's nuts. It's nuts.
But it's apparently I only write forewords for people that I care greatly for, because I wrote one for another book that came out this week. So I'm very honored and blessed for both of those. But I know that I know. And I know that people who have listened to you for all these years know. But why are you a ufologist?
Well, I've always been interested in UFOs and that they're here, because I always knew that they were here. Even as a child, always knew it. And I was interested initially in astronomy. My aunt was the secretary for the Astronomical Association of America. And she got me really interested in that. And every time that I went to visit her, I had an opportunity to look through whatever books that she had, and they were always just fascinating. They were very difficult to go through for a little kid, but
think.
I loved the pictures, and that's all I wanted to know. I wanted to see what was out there. But she instilled in me a great interest, and that interest went through to my time in school, and when I worked for Honeywell, I still maintained the same interest. Any science show on TV, I was right there. And I never really had a great opportunity to do much of anything until such time as I retired. Then the world was my oyster. I could do anything I wanted. So I jumped into a paranormal team, and they were looking for someone to talk about ufology, and I was the first one to raise my hand. I wanted to do it. When I guess when I created my street creds on ufology, what I did was I sat down and I started writing blogs. And these blogs were about various aspects of UFOs, how they got here, how they hover, how they accelerate, all kinds of things. I just wrote what I thought, what I understood to be true. And these blogs, I eventually, there were about 35 of them in all, I put them into one of my books, Going Interstellar.
Yes.
And that's what you were talking about. Let's see. After I did that, I wanted to get back into looking at databases, and because that's what I did pretty much for the last 10 years that I worked for my company. We would do temperature controls, and within the temperature control systems, they had humongous databases. All kinds of information was stored. And we used the information to do troubleshooting. I thought that was a great opportunity to keep doing the same thing when I left my company.
Right.
And I came across a database, the National UFO Reporting Center, which was just one UFO sighting after another. Some not so good, others pretty good sightings. And that's when I started working on my They Are Here series. I utilized databases to draw conclusions, to open up other people's minds to what these databases may indeed be telling us. They weren't just a whole collection of sightings. They were things that opened up patterns, and that's what I wanted to tell people. So not only did I write the books, I created this humongous map. I found a map in Staples. It was a map of the United States, a 30-inch by 50-inch. Yeah. And that's a pretty big map, okay? And I mounted that on a piece of foam board, and I started putting pins in the map corresponding to the UFO sightings that the database was telling me. And the only reason I did it initially was not to write a book. Okay, I did these little pretty pictures on maps. The only reason I did that was to get something to talk about. When I realized what I was creating, that's when I knew that I had a whole lot of information that I had to get out, and that's what opened my mind to. I have to start doing books on this, and that created the They Are Here series.
Which are
So
addictive.
yeah, it's just been one thing after another. I never wanted to write a book. I never did. Didn't
And now
start
you've
out
written
writing a book.
6.
Yeah. Didn't start out writing a book. Never wanted to do it. But when I realized the information that I was opening, I had to start putting it on paper. The patterns, the pictures, the data. I tried to answer why the UFOs are here, and went off in a particular direction about pollution and whatever else. And then I came to a whole different conclusion when I put my last book together, Earthquakes and UFOs. I went off in a whole different direction from where I started. So it's just been a whole ride for me, creating the books and talking about the maps and opening up the information that, frankly, the map was telling me. It's been a lot of fun.
Well, that is a lot of fun. Maybe not everybody would think so because it's so much hard work, but I know you, and I know that that was just a wonderful thing to have to do after your retirement. It just kept you in research, and it kept you thinking, and it kept you working on the most interesting topic. So that was pretty much perfect.
It really kept me busy. One of the other things I did when I first decided to get into ufology after I retired was I posted a couple things on Facebook that I'm now investigating ufology, and people came out of the woodwork to tell me that they had a story for me of when they were abducted. And boy, I found out a whole lot of stuff that I didn't expect to find out. I took about 3 years of that, and then I couldn't take it anymore because the stories I started taking to heart, and they really bothered me.
Yes.
So I had to put them to the back and say, I learned a lot by talking to people, but I just can't do this anymore. I have to find something more mundane, and that's when I got into data, just massive sightings. And that's when I could feel comfortable. When I was dealing with people's emotions, it almost made me sick to my stomach, and I didn't want to do it anymore.
Well, I have a hard time dealing with that too because I don't understand the motivation, but I really don't understand the motivation behind the abductions, and I don't understand why some are, so friendly and wonderful, and, they get positive messages to bring back, and then others are just horrific.
Yeah.
I don't understand that, and I think it's just a terrible thing to have such broad spectrum of experiences, but I mean that's interesting, but it's not interesting when you're visualizing someone being really damaged.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
it's just not.
It bothered me.
I don't deal with that well either.
Yeah, it really bothered me, Kat. I had to just give it up, even though I didn't want to tell people that I was failing, that I was somehow weak, that, all these thoughts went through my mind. And I finally said, these people have gone through a really rough experience, and I'm trying to help them through it by, number one, understanding what happened to them, and number two, put it into some sort of storyline, some perspective. And boy, I fell under the exact same pitfall that you just described. I couldn't come up with a reason at the time why the abductions were happening. that reason is still floating out in the blue somewhere for me. But I did realize after I stopped that everyone was supposed to be having the same positive experience. And the reason why some people were having negative experiences were that they were either not hypnotized thoroughly or put to sleep correctly or whatever the deal happened to be. I really think that they all the intent was for all of them to have a good experience with it.
Well, that was a singular failure. But we were going to have to take a break because it's that time, and man, time just flies when you're doing this. It's so much fun. So we will be right back. And if y'all have questions, please do feel free to put them in chat. We are at WBHM-DB, and you can hear us there live, as well as in Spreaker. Just search Fate Magazine Radio, and you will find us right there. We'll be right back.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, Birmingham, Alabama.
Paratalk Radio is your one-stop for all things paranormal, the unknown, and the supernatural. Join us every Monday night at 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central for discussions and guests on topics such as ghosts, hauntings, Bigfoot, UFOs, and more. This broadcast is rated M for mature and intended for listeners over 16 on paratalkradio.com.
Oh, come on. I'm Southern, but... nope. That'll do. Hello. I am Kat Hobson, host of Paranormal Experience here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. I enjoy having guests from all areas of the paranormal, from ghosts to ufology to cryptids and beyond. You'll find some of the best researchers in their fields bringing you some great information. Join me on Wednesday nights from 8 to 10 p. Eastern here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
Since 1948, Fate Magazine has brought you reports of the strange and unknown, all of them true. Fate Radio is carrying on that tradition, bringing you the unusual, macabre, strange, and bizarre. Join host Kat Hobson Sunday nights from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
Thank you for listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama.
Since 1948, Fate Magazine has brought you reports of the strange and unknown, all of them true. Fate Radio is carrying on that tradition, bringing you the unusual, macabre, strange, and bizarre. Join host Kat Hobson Sunday nights from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
The time is 23 minutes after the hour. Welcome back to Fate Mag Radio, the online voice of Fate Magazine. I'm so glad you're here. I am Kat Hobson, your host, with my guest, Tom Conwell, and we are having so much fun. There is a Tim. There's a story there. But I am so glad that we have this chance to talk and to celebrate your book and all the other ones too. I just think it's awesome. So, and I interrupted you. We were talking about different things and how your patterns were coming together and how you we're learning so much, I wanted to emphasize, if it's okay with you, that your research did not come from MUFON records. These were independent records that you were going, wasn't it UFO Corps and some others?
Yeah, everything was from the National UFO Reporting Center.
Right. And it was surprising because, we have another friend who writes UFO who was strictly MUFON records. And how did those two compare?
As far as I could tell, there are plenty of crossovers. You'll see the same sighting in both places. There are an occasional an occasional sighting in MUFON that you won't find in New Fork, and that will be something that someone who may happen to be a friend of MUFON only reports it in one place. And the UFO sightings are handled quite a bit differently. In New Fork, they usually don't have any kind of field investigation done. But every so often, you will get Peter Davenport, who runs a New Fork site, to call someone up and ask them follow-up questions because something sounds really interesting to him. And that's when he realizes that every so often he comes across a sighting that is nonsense. And he'll still include the sighting, but also mention that he doesn't trust the source. Then we have MUFON. When they get a sighting, they will most often will refer the sighting out to a field investigator, and that person will contact the person directly and hopefully get out to that person's area and do a little bit of investigating. That's what's hoped for. And quite a few times they'll come up with the reason why they saw what they saw that has nothing to do with a UFO. There are those kinds of sightings.
Yes.
There's nothing you can do with it. They're there. I don't like to include every sighting. What I've done with the New Fork sighting is I would read the full description, the long description, and of course the short description. And if something sounds bogus to me and I don't like what I'm hearing, I'll delete the record. And I'll do that with probably 15 to 20% of the things that are in the database. So what I'm left with is not all of them being perfect, but a whole lot more than they used to be.
Yes.
And that took me a year to do that, to go through all those databases.
Wow.
Yeah.
People always think, oh, well, you just sit down and write a book. Well,
no.
Even something that is intended to be small and not really overwhelming is not easy. And it doesn't just go poof, there it is. Trust me, I've tried. So it is just slogging along and getting the info, putting it into a format that will be pleasing to a reader and help them understand what you're trying to get across. And you did a really good job of that because you are dealing with very technical terminology as well as a subject that tends to blow people away. And people love your books.
I certainly hope so. What I've always been happy with is that I'm able to see the whole picture before I put one word on paper.
Mm-hmm.
So I will write an outline, and I'll say in the outline what I wanted to do, what the next topic will be, and the topic after that, and possibly a few subtopics. And so I usually have a really good outline prior to putting a word on paper. All of my books, except for one, have turned out that way. And it has been extremely successful for me. The one book that didn't is my latest book.
Really?
Yeah.
Was that because everything kind of turned around on you?
It sure did. Yep. Yep. It's like going to a baseball hitting park and having those pitching machines, throw you one ball after another, and they all come in straight, fast but straight, and you can rely that the ball is going to be in a general area and swing away. It's a lot of fun to do, and it gets somebody who's interested in baseball the feeling that they're actually doing something and being a major leaguer for a few minutes.
Right.
The problem is if someone were to all of a sudden change the way balls are coming in, that one is a fastball and the next one is a changeup, you're going to swing and you're not going to be anywhere near that ball. Or the next ball is a curve, or a screwball, or a slider, or a drop ball, or a knuckleball. You don't know what the heck you're going to have. This is what happens with some of the books that you write. If you have a good outline, you'll have a good picture of where you want to go, even if you get the curveball. Well, I got the curveball with this particular book, and I was lost. I had no idea what to do. But
that is not you.
Yeah. Oh boy. We'll talk more about that when we get into the book and I do the whole scenario. But if you're going to write a book, write an outline. It goes a long, long way toward a structure. And that is the most important thing about putting a book on paper.
Did you have to transcribe your work? Did you actually write it out, or did you just key it coming from your outline and follow that through?
What I would do is put the outline as the first, however long the outline was, the first couple of pages of the book. Mm-hmm. Okay, just the outline was there, and then I would go into the first topic and think, okay, now how can I expand this? What can I say about it that will add more information? So if I had, let's say I had a book about book writing. The first thing I wanted to do was write an outline, and I would say how important that outline was. And then I would get into the outline and specify how much it helped me when I put the outline on the page of paper and wrote into the outline what I was doing. I'd start with the first one and come up with a whole lot of topics. And when I listed out the topics, there might be 3 or there might be 20. But each of these topics have, words attached to them. And that's how I expanded my book.
It's way too easy in the description. It's a lot of work in the execution. Yeah. But the books that you compiled and wrote are not small books. You have a great deal of information in every one of them. So I think that's pretty amazing.
Yeah. and I paid the price for them too, because what was happening is every time I started to actually put words on paper, that's step 2 after the outline. After I started putting words on paper, then my sleep habits changed, and I was getting awakened at 3 a.m. with all these thoughts going through my head, and well, sleep was few and far between.
Mm.
I certainly paid a price for it.
Yeah. You know, people don't realize that either. That when you're writing, it's kind of all you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
So, but your health actually suffered.
Oh, yes.
And I'm glad that you're here.
Me too. Yeah, me too.
So, you know what? I think we have so many people that are interested in this book, and I don't think that you are ever going to be out of words, ever. So Sherry has already said that she remembers you saying before that there's a definite connection between fault lines and UFO sightings. Has anything changed about that since you were last on, or have you learned any new interesting information?
The only thing that I found out about fault lines when I was writing my latest book is that, for the most part, and I'm going to describe this when I get into describing the whole book. For the most part, a large earthquake does not attract UFOs. Even though I started out writing that they do, they don't. What I did notice, which I thought was interesting, is when there was a swarm of earthquakes that occurred in a different place in the fault line than the actual major quake did, that's where you saw a jump in sightings. And I thought that was interesting. Also noticed that at some times when there was, let's say, a major earthquake in, let's say, north of San Francisco, I would find that out in the desert outside of Los Angeles, or in the central U.S. Near the New Madrid fault, and I'd see a lot of sightings there. And I thought, well, they aren't attached to each other. Why were there sightings there when the major earthquake was somewhere else? I haven't come up with a reason for that. But those two things are the two things that I noticed when I was putting this particular book together.
Well, I know that you had said that it was completely not what you were anticipating.
Not even close.
So I think it's amazing. I think it's everybody just assumed, right?
Exactly. And that's why I did it, because there was these assumptions all over the place, and everyone would just say that as if it's true. So I said, fine, I'll prove it. And I couldn't.
Yes, research is a humbling housemate. So, truth. But were you at the very beginning of your research when you started discovering this?
Yes. I was at the point where I started expanding the amount of days that I was looking at before and after the actual major quake. Initially, I found almost no correlation between the major quake where it happened to be and a bunch of UFO sightings. Oh, a couple, but not like I could state, oh yeah, I proved it here. I just didn't see that. So I extended the amount of sightings that I was including and the amount of days that I was putting down earthquakes. And then I knew that it had absolutely nothing to do with the earthquakes, why the UFO sightings were where they were. It's as if they said, well, fine, there's a little earthquake there, but I don't care. And they went about their business.
Right.
So let's see, in answer to your question, I realized very early on that there may be no correlation, but I wasn't willing to give it up. I expanded my search before I gave it up.
Well, I'm glad you did. I imagine you are too.
Yeah.
Good to have the book.
Even though what I found, and the direction that the book took at the end, was revealed to me in the very early stages of my research. But I didn't see it until later. Had I looked for it, then I would have noticed a correlation and may not have looked even further than that. But I went through the whole procedure, short and long, and tried to come up with something or other, and I had nothing.
Wow. That's one of those kind of deep breath and quivery tummy moments.
Yeah. I probably put my research, which was stacks of papers, and each particular map that I created was on a separate page of paper. And I had a big stack of these things, and I put it aside and waited for about a month, and in some cases 3 months, before I picked it up again, because I just didn't know what to do with it.
Right. Well,
until I did know what to do with it. And it was like it stuck out like a sore thumb. Well, and I never expected it.
We're going to stop there because I want everybody to get the full emphasis of that moment, that aha moment. And we have to take a break. So we will be right back and have more information from Tom Conwell. It's going to be great.
You're listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk, only on Paranormal Experience Radio, broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
Oh, come on. I'm Southern, but... Nope. That'll do. Hello. I am Kat Hobson, host of Paranormal Experience here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. I enjoy having guests from all areas of the paranormal, from ghosts to ufology to cryptids and beyond. You'll find some of the best researchers in their fields bringing you some great information. Join me on Wednesday nights from 8 to 10 p. Eastern here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
This is Jason Bland, host of Midwest Paranormal Presents Paranormal Soup, where we stream live as a webcast every Sunday night, 11 p.m. to 2 a.m. Eastern, with guests who will blow your mind. Live ghost box sessions where you can call into the show to see if the spirits will talk to you, and the World Wide Web of Weird with the latest in paranormal news and evidence. We're bringing the weird every Sunday night, 11 p.m. to 2 a.m. Eastern on our Facebook page and YouTube channel. Don't forget to follow and subscribe.
You are listening to WBHM WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk, only on Paranormal Experience Radio. Broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
Thank you for listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. The time is 45 minutes after the hour. Welcome back to Fate Mag Radio. I'm Kat Hobson, your host, with my guest, Tom Conwell, and his son is Tim. I'm friends with both, and their names really are not interchangeable, although I try to do it all the time. And I'm so sorry. So I'm glad that you know me well enough to understand that that happens sometimes. But now, I interrupted you so we could take that break. I want to hear what you did. What popped out and how did you feel?
Okay, now, are you referring to how this book came together from the beginning, the story?
Well, the aha moment.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, when I started doing the book, I had to do research. And the only thing that I could figure out to do was to get a map of the United States and put on this map where the major quake occurred. And then, over top of that, put on that particular map, that same map, where the UFO sightings were. And I thought this was all that I was going to need in order to prove my point. Well, after about the sixth earthquake, I realized I wasn't going to prove anything. So that at that point, what I did was I took the same maps. I made another whole batch of copies of them. I took these same maps and I put only the earthquakes on one map. In other words, the major earthquakes and all the little ones that surrounded it. And put that on one map. And then I went to the UFO sightings and put that, the UFO sightings for the whole United States on the second map. Because initially I had only put UFO sightings from the area around the earthquake, because that's all I was looking at.
Right.
So I put them on the whole United States, which took it just forever, okay? And I had approximately 20 major quakes, along with all of the minor ones that occurred. And with some of them, there are maybe up to 100 that I had to put on an individual map before I went to the UFO sightings. So I did all that and realized that, okay, fine, I did that data and I can't find anything here. I have no idea what this maps are telling me. It's certainly not telling me that UFOs are attracted to earthquakes. Far from it. So I thought, well, maybe I have some alternatives. What I'll do is, because these UFO guys are pretty smart, they have some really good computers, and maybe what they're doing is looking well into the past and into the future. So I expanded my search from 2 days before and 2 days after, plus the day of,
right,
for all of the little small quakes, to 5 days before and 5 days after, which means that I had to go back into the maps and create a whole nother map of this 11-day window, 5 before, 5 after, plus the day of. So I have a whole nother set of maps, another 20, that showed 5 before, 5 after, and the day of, for all of the earthquakes that occurred, and for all of the UFO sightings that occurred. And when I compared the two, I was absolutely dumbfounded. I had still no correlations, which told me at that point in time that I had no book. After
what a wonderful feeling that had to have been.
After a whole 9 months of work, I had no book. So I set all of these maps out on a table as best I could. And I had the 5-day maps out in a straight line. And beyond that, I had the 10-day maps out, 11-day maps out in another straight line above it. And then I had the UFO sightings out in a map above that, and a 5-day, and then another group of the UFO sightings in an 11-day. So I had 4 rows of maps, probably close to 80 of them, and they were on this great big table, and they were just sitting there. So whenever a commercial would happen on the tube, I'd stand up and look down at the maps, trying to see something stick out. And, of course, every single time I did it, there was nothing to stick out for me. So, lo and behold, my dog needs to be let out. So I jumped up and let her out. And as I walked back past the table with these long rows of maps there, as I walked past the table, I looked at the maps. Instead of being in the south and looking at the map with the east and west on right and left, I looked at the map from east to west because I was standing there looking down the line. And in almost every instance, I saw a pattern.
Yep.
Almost every instance, there was a straight line of UFO sightings.
I think that is the coolest thing.
Where the hell did this come from?
Right?
I had no idea. A straight line of UFO. What
and
is
they
this?
They are almost entirely straight lines.
Yeah. And by the way, these straight lines did not occur on the 11-day cycle, when 11 days were looked at and all put on a map. They only occurred on the 5-day. So now I had to come up with a reason. Okay, why are these things in 5-day cycles, and why are there straight lines here? So what I did was collected all my maps again, put them in a big pile and put them in a drawer, and said, I'm going to think about this for a while. And about maybe a month and a half later, I had thought out in my mind, why did I catch the UFO's sightings in a straight line for a short window and didn't see them in a long window? Why would they be in a straight line at all? I theorized at that point that the what I did was catch them as they were going back and forth across the United States while they were doing some sort of survey work or something along those lines. Well, now, surveys, figured that's almost like topographical map-like things. And I thought, why would they be doing that?
Exactly.
They've come hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of light years to our planet to visit us, and they have to keep looking at our maps to see what's changing. Don't they have super duper computers? And don't they just?
I always thought they did.
And shouldn't they be able to go in there and look at their information that they have from a previous scan? You'd figure they wouldn't have to scan, but once is good enough, because the planet's not changing like that mad. It's just not. So that created another problem for me. Why are they still looking, going across the United States in these straight lines? Why are they looking continuously? Why? It made no sense to me. So one of the things I thought, well, what could be changing? So I made a long list of all the things that could potentially change on the planet. And that was pollution and rivers and metal deposits and air quality. I looked at everything. I made long lists and said, all of these things may change ever so slightly from time to time, but it wouldn't require them to keep going back and forth over the same areas. Why would they do that? So it occurred to me that the only thing that I could not come up with as to why they're going back and forth over the same areas is that the only thing changing are potentially the people. The ground isn't changing. The air isn't changing. The rivers aren't changing. The underground area isn't changing. But the people must be.
Like the number of the populace or awakening, or what would you think they were interested in?
Awakening.
Mm-hmm.
Because the population, they could use an algorithm and calculate what the population is going to be the next time they go around.
Mm-hmm.
They don't need to fly over. However, what if people are rapidly coming of age, knowing their environment? What if they are becoming psychic, empathic? Because in order for us to be shown these people and all that they're doing, well, we have to expand our mind. We have to go beyond where we're going, or where we are now. And the only place that we can go beyond that is if our mind expands, if we're changing our vibration. Whatever the deal happens to be, we're changing, and they know it, and that's what they're finding.
Well, I hope so, because my heart was broken for humanity recently. And, even some of the most self-proclaimed spiritualists, empaths, light workers, and positivity divas were the ugliest I've ever seen any people at one time be.
Yeah.
So I think social media is taking us back to, Lord of the Flies. But
it's allowing that to happen. I don't think we are. I think we've almost created the environment where we're allowed to do that, and people
it's
are
not a good thing
advantage.
for humanity.
No, it's not. It is absolutely not.
And I know that it's because I am those things. I am a light worker. I am positivity. I am an empath, and a pretty strong one. And I have had to kind of go into a cocoon, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I've lost, as far as I know, only people that I muted. I wasn't ugly. I just was like, my jaw was dropping.
Mm-hmm.
I've never seen that level of inhumanity in my life, and I'm thankful for that. So, but we're going to go to our top of the hour news break. We have got so many questions that you are going to have to ponder. But, maybe other people were shocked too, and that's going to change things. But we will be back right after this news break, and maybe there'll be a little good news. We're just about dadgum due for some. So y'all enjoy, and we'll see you when we're done.
Live from NPR News, I'm Janine Herbst. President Trump briefly left the hospital today in a black SUV to wave at supporters gathered outside, according to White House spokesman Judd Deere. But the White House press corps that normally follows the president had already been sent home. Deere says Trump is back at the hospital. The drive came shortly after Trump promised his supporters a, quote, surprise in another video posted on social media. Meanwhile, the White House physician says Trump's condition has improved. He's on 2 medications, usually given to people with serious COVID-19 symptoms, as NPR's Juana Summers reports.
White House physician Sean Conley said that President Trump's blood oxygen level dropped twice in recent days, but that the president has had no fever since Friday morning. Brian Garibaldi is another doctor on the team.
And if he continues to look and feel as well as he does today, our hope is that we can plan for a discharge as early as tomorrow to the White House, where he can continue his treatment course.
The doctors also said that the president had been given the steroid dexamethasone. The World Health Organization issued guidelines last month recommending that steroid only be given to patients with severe and critical COVID-19. Juana Summers, NPR News.
2 Republican senators who have now tested positive for the coronavirus sit on the Senate Judiciary Committee, which is expected to begin confirmation hearings for Judge Amy Coney Barrett on October 12th, just 8 days from now. NPR's Susan Davis has more.
It speaks to the level of dedication Republicans have to push this nomination through before the election. In some ways, I think it also speaks to the lack of confidence they have about the party's ability to hold the White House and the Senate in this election. Democrats on the committee are protesting this. They sent a letter to Graham saying that this decision, quote, threatens the health and safety of all those who are called upon to do the work of this body. But right now, Mitch McConnell, the majority leader, has the math for the votes on his side. As long as this outbreak stays contained, if there's more positives, it could affect these calculations.
NPR's Susan Davis. New York City's mayor is moving to reinstate restrictions in several neighborhoods because of a resurgence of the coronavirus. As NPR's Joel Rose reports, the shutdowns would begin on Wednesday.
Mayor Bill de Blasio says he's asking the state for permission to rewind the reopening in 9 zip codes across Brooklyn and Queens, where positivity rates have been rising.
In some parts of our city, we're having an extraordinary problem, something we haven't seen since the spring.
De Blasio says schools and non-essential businesses would be forced to close in those 9 neighborhoods for at least 2 weeks. Many of the neighborhoods have large Orthodox Jewish communities. The shutdown would affect roughly 100 public schools and 200 private schools, many of them yeshivas. De Blasio says the city is closely watching the positivity rates in 11 other zip codes, but will allow them to stay open for now. Joel Rose, NPR News.
And you're listening to NPR News. Fierce fighting between Armenia and Azerbaijan is continuing for a second week, that despite a joint call for peace by the U.S., France, and Russia. As NPR's Lucian Kim reports from Moscow, both sides blame each other for the escalation that began a week ago.
Nagorno-Karabakh is a region in Azerbaijan also inhabited by ethnic Armenians, who fought a bloody war of secession when the Soviet Union fell apart 3 decades ago. After more than 25 years of a shaky ceasefire, fighting has resumed, with Azerbaijan pledging to take back the region. Azerbaijani President Ilham Aliyev says his forces have already taken several towns and villages. Armenian Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan says Azerbaijan has failed to make any significant gains, and accused the Turkish military of directing Azerbaijani operations. Turkey is not hiding its support for Azerbaijan, directly challenging Russia's historic supremacy in the region. Lucian Kim, NPR News, Moscow.
In Nevada, a $34 million fish bypass system at a dam is finished, which will allow threatened trout to return to some of their native spawning grounds for the first time in more than a century. Construction of the fish-friendly side channel is a major step toward one day enabling the Lahontan cutthroat trout to make the entire 100-mile trip upstream. They used to swim from a desert lake on tribal land northeast of Reno to Lake Tahoe before Derby Dam was built in 1905. It's a joint project involving Pyramid Lake Paiute Tribe, 2 federal agencies, and the Farmers Conservation Alliance. I'm Janine Herbst, NPR News.
Welcome back to WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. The time is 5 minutes after the hour. Welcome back to Fate Magazine Radio here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. And I'm going to apologize because I did say what I felt, but you know what? Everybody else is feeling something too. I just don't like unkindness, and it makes me cringe. And, you know, I can be feisty, but I try not to. And so I was like turning the other cheek and just not commenting because I didn't have a 2 cents worth to put in. I was just kind of shocked. So, yeah, it's all good. It is. Everybody has their own thing. So we are back, though, with Tom Conwell. See, I jinxed myself earlier. And I am so excited because we have got some pretty serious questions flowing here. And they're interesting ones. So, are you up for it?
I'm ready.
And I stopped you in mid-thought, and I apologize. Did you want to go back to that?
That's right. No, not really. Just perhaps I should just finish my thought that after I realized why the UFOs were probably going back and forth over these same areas, is that they're most likely very psychic beings, and the only way that they can tell if we are changing is if they're in close proximity to us, and they can measure that with their psychic skills. And I could not answer the questions about what is awakening. I had no idea. I tried doing some research on the internet, and I was getting nowhere. So I got in touch with a bunch of my friends who range from paranormal investigators to psychics to empaths, a couple of authors, and I got a broad range of opinions on what this was all about. And I included everybody's opinion in my book, no matter what they said. And
it was a good conversation, though.
There really was. It went the whole gamut. But I think it added a whole lot to the book because I was looking for a broad spectrum of why they may be doing what they're doing, and I think I found it.
I think you did too. Well, because I knew a lot of the people who were responding to that. And to me, it was just great information. And it was like when I said mine, yeah, this is my opinion. To me, this is awakening. And everyone else seemed to do that too. Nobody was being judgmental because it's a very personal thing for each person.
Yeah.
And that
well,
was
no one knew.
That.
I hate to interrupt. No one knew what anybody else was writing.
Right.
I never told anybody anything.
Yeah.
And then I put them all in one area in the book, and I let the reader decide which one made the most sense to them.
You know, somebody I like on that topic is William Henry. Are you familiar with him?
Boy, that name's familiar.
He's on Ancient Aliens a good bit. He's the guy that...
Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah.
He and his wife, Claire, are fascinated with Egypt, with pyramids.
Mm-hmm.
And they're such interesting people to talk to. You can find him on Facebook if anyone is interested, William Henry. And, I mean, he does his own Facebook. And they do tours in Nashville, which is actually built with a lot of Egyptology in mind, apparently. And he and Claire take people on tours to Egypt. Claire is fascinating in her own right. And So, but yeah, they are very awakened people.
That sounds like fun.
It is fun. I am dying to do it. So, but I am going to do the Nashville tour. Once I got the hang of it, I've been hurt for 2 stupid years.
Oh,
so I'm almost through. I'm going to be so excited. But let's see. We'll start. Did you learn anything about quakes that you didn't know before that surprised you?
I guess several things. One of the things that surprised me the most was how many quakes were out in Nevada. I didn't expect that. I also didn't expect quakes in the Rocky Mountains in southwestern Montana. That was a surprise. I thought I would see more quakes in the central U.S., in the New Madrid Fault area. I thought I'd see a lot more there, but that surprised me. And it also surprised me that there were so many quakes in southern Colorado, because there's not a whole lot of faults going on there. Minor things. And I guess one other thing I noticed that was a little unusual, I didn't expect. I knew that fracking was causing some quakes around the country where there was the wastewater re-injected down into the deep earth. And these were causing quakes in Pennsylvania and in Oklahoma. That surprised me. But I guess that's the length of my surprise. I knew that the quakes were all around, but those particular areas did surprise me with the quantities.
Well, I'll tell you, the New Madrid Fault fascinates me because it seems to be causing the ones here and in Georgia as well. And I was probably in the 5th grade the first time there was an earthquake big enough in Alabama to knock things down. And I've had like 4 different experiences since then. So it's a little freaky. I mean, that's why the first time I was working out in California, I was just sitting at my desk and it was a drop ceiling and stuff was falling. It was like snowing around me. And I was like, what on earth is happening? Well, it was an earthquake, but it was a tremor. I didn't feel it, but it shook the building and the stuff off of the ceiling tiles was just drifting down. So I went outside.
Good choice.
Yeah. I was in Santa Cruz and they had recently had that, was it Northwoods? I can't remember the name of that town. That was the epicenter of a earthquake. And so I just stepped outside for a moment. It was a good thing.
So the quakes in northern Alabama were most likely not New Madrid related, but were East Tennessee Fault related.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, wherever they come from, they can just stay there.
Yes.
I'm good without it. Okay. Now, this question is actually, I think Sherry wrote down all her questions at one time. So we'll take them as they come. But what is your opinion on why the aliens haven't fully revealed themselves to us? What are they waiting for? And why do you think they watch us the way they do?
Okay. Well, they haven't revealed themselves because we have not yet awakened fully. We are not ready for the love that they would open up to us. We're still full of hate, and there's wars going on, and we aren't doing a good job allowing ourselves to be open to what the alien message is. So until such time as we've made some changes, I don't think we're going to be greeted by aliens anytime very soon. Unless there's a major catastrophe, that's what may get them to reveal themselves to us. But it's not going to happen because of our love for each other. That's for darn sure.
Well, clearly. Well, when you said a disaster, with the technology that we have available to us today, Fukushima is an extinction event. And nobody ever talks about that anymore. But to have that level of radiation is, and it's still active radiation. It still can't be contained. They won't even discuss that anymore. But Fukushima was an extinction level event. And if they were going to show up for something, or if somebody gets a download, please bring it forward, because we need the technology to fix that. We don't have it. We can't even get in there to them, to the reactors. So I really thought, I know that there was a lot of UFO activity around Fukushima at the time and shortly after. I'm curious to know if that continues. I haven't thought to look that up until just now. But we have had catastrophic incidents that we need help with that are not just humanity based. So maybe they think we'll get the hang of it.
Oh, maybe, I don't know. Or they're just allowing things to happen as they know they're supposed to. And until such time as there's a really, really big one causing great consternation, that they're just going to allow things to happen.
Well, kind of like God, right?
Yeah, it's a scary proposition, but if these things are supposed to happen, then they're going to allow them to happen before they do any major introductions.
Well, why do you think that they take the people they take? Because they're not, as a rule, willing. They're not, as a rule, rocket scientists, or they won't take any of the government people. I wonder why that is. But but seriously.
Okay. Let me throw out some information that I found out when I was doing my interviews of people that were abducted. In every instance, and I do mean every instance, the people that I believed that had been abducted by aliens were either psychic or about to be extremely psychic. So these people were awakened by the aliens, or they were helped along slightly, but in every regard, they were all psychic. That is the tie-in that they were looking for. And that's how they found people, by flying over and realized that, people were contacting out into the wilderness with their mind, and they were able to sense that. Those are the people they took.
So, we have a break. But when we get back, I want to talk with you about Stephen Greer, relevant to that. So, in his CE5 meditations and such. So, we will be back right after this break. This is This is getting really good, guys. Y'all come back.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, Birmingham, Alabama.
Paratalk Radio is your one-stop for all things paranormal, the unknown, and the supernatural. Join us every Monday night at 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central for discussions and guests on topics such as ghosts, hauntings, Bigfoot, UFOs, and more. This broadcast is rated M for mature and intended for listeners over 16 on paratalkradio.com.
Oh, come on. I'm Southern, but... Nope. That'll do. Hello. I am Kat Hobson, host of Paranormal Experience here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. I enjoy having guests from all areas of the paranormal, from ghosts to ufology to cryptids and beyond. You'll find some of the best researchers in their fields bringing you some great information. Join me on Wednesday nights from 8 to 10 p. Eastern here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
Since 1948, Fate magazine has brought you reports of the strange and unknown, all of them true. Fate Radio is carrying on that tradition, bringing you the unusual, macabre, strange, and bizarre. Join host Kat Hobson Sunday nights from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
Thank you for listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama.
Since 1948, Fate magazine has brought you reports of the strange and unknown, all of them true. Fate Radio is carrying on that tradition, bringing you the unusual, macabre, strange, and bizarre. Join host Kat Hobson Sunday nights from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
The time is 23 minutes after the hour. Welcome back to Fate Mag Radio here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting. I am your host, Kat Hobson, the voice of fate, as it were. And I am joined by Tom Conwell, who is one of the best UFO researchers, if not the best UFO researcher I've ever met when it comes down to actual, craft sightings, a various craft scene, interaction. And now he's written a book on earthquakes and UFOs. The link is not what you think it is. And that is absolute truth. I am so glad that you are here because I am having a blast. So, I think it's so fun that I actually found that show from 2017 when we first started doing this. It's a lot of fun.
Oh, yeah.
I learned a lot from you. So, April in chat said, maybe it may be related to movement of sun, moon, and stars. Those movements can cause earthquakes, but are just percentage chances. So, what do you think of that? Do you think that's a possibility?
I'm not understanding the question. Can you say that again?
Could it be like astrological? Like the moon and stars aligning, or something physically causing that?
Okay. Wow, is it possible? There's ever so slight tugs on the Earth when stars align, when planets align, I'm not convinced that that is the cause of earthquakes. I think that earthquakes are caused just by general tectonic movement, and it eventually hits a trip point and something happens. However, let me throw this out. It is possible that in our ancient history, that during a planetary alignment, that it has exerted enough influence on the Earth to coax the Earth out of its orbit enough to allow it to be heated or cooled.
Really?
Yeah. Whether it has caused earthquakes or not, I have not come across that kind of data. I would just say that I don't think so. That's all that I can really say.
Good enough. Well, when we were discussing things, I have just been blown away, and I wanted you to share again why you think, because every abductee I've spoken with, except 2 or 3, have always said, love. They tell us that, love is all that matters. Love each other, love your planet, take care of things. And truly, that is just about to a person. So, when you talk about they're here just watching us and seeing how we're doing relevant to that, is that a possibility?
Wow. Okay.
But let me add to that. She wanted to know why there would be negative abductions if the message is love.
Oh, okay. I see.
She missed that.
Okay. Now I understand. Okay.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. I believe that all abductions are supposed to be positive, that they try to control the situation, and that every so often they are not in the kind of control that they'd hope to be. If someone wakes up during an abduction event and not during the final thought where they're trying to implant good memories in us, if they wake up during the event, it has got to be terrifying. I think that's what's happening with some people who just can't be either hypnotized or controlled. They are the ones that are most likely to have the bad experiences because they are waking up in the presence of ET and not in the presence of what ET is trying to implant in our mind. These are the ones that go bad. But I think that they are all supposed to be very positive, and they're supposed to leave us with positive messages. It just doesn't happen that way all the time.
Well, apparently not, because I actually went to an experiencers group session, and it was not all positive.
Yeah.
So I just was taken aback, but I know that it made me feel really uncomfortable.
Yeah, I think they want it to be, but it just doesn't always work out that way.
Well, I think they do too. But a good case in point would be Travis Walton. Because I think Travis was an inadvertent abduction. I think he got caught in what for us would be prop wash, but whatever device they're using to fly hit him. If it was nuclear or whatever, I think it killed him, and he thinks that. So they took him aboard to save him, and and he was gone 5 days.
Yeah,
So
that
I
makes
guess even for them it was hard.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. What happened to Travis? I had an opportunity to chat with him for a few minutes at an event in New Jersey, and he's a pretty interesting person. He told me that he thought that he was killed, and they took him on board to try to revive him and get him back to normal before they planted him back on the earth. But things happen. They were still learning about us and learning about what we can and can't do, learning about what they can and can't do to us. And he was unfortunately one of the bad ones, but they really wanted that to happen.
The healing?
Well, no, they wanted the healing to happen because they did some damage to him. Right. But I don't think that they wanted a whole lot of the things to happen that has happened over the years, like people waking up during the event and being scared to death and wanting out of there. Yeah, that hasn't. They didn't want that to happen, no. And still don't. They wanted everything to be loving and positive and everything else.
Well, I tell you that in his perception, they were not. But by the same token, when he woke up, he saw what he described as bugs around him.
Yeah.
And jumped up to defend himself. And they left and came back as Nordics, which was, more human looking. Mm-hmm. So it's a fascinating story. If you haven't read his book, Fire on the Mountain, y'all should go and read that.
It's a pretty cool book.
Pretty cool guy. And, he did do a good job. So I like him. But let's see. Sherry wanted to know, have there ever been any sightings around natural disasters? And she was referring to tsunamis, but if you're at the fault line where that happens, you don't know that that's happened because you just have a swell that goes under you. Mm-hmm. And so, it's not like what you see on the beach. But has that happened? So...
It hasn't happened in the United States that I'm aware of. However, with the larger earthquakes that have created tsunamis, I believe that things have been seen in the sky in and around there, whether they were seen prior to the event happening or just after the event. I think in both instances, they were wondering what the event was going to do and how it was going to affect us.
Okay. Well, the only tsunami that I've been aware of was, two. And I haven't heard about, another one. But that was the one in, I believe, Indonesia.
Yes.
And the one in Japan.
Mm-hmm.
I do know that there was activity over Japan. I don't know about outside that area.
Yeah, there were craft seen in the air in the Fukushima area during that event.
Yes. Just bizarre.
But then again, the people that were there weren't looking up and saying, "Oh, look at that! Isn't that pretty?" They were holding on for their lives. So, for that reason, the craft in the sky become an afterthought.
Mm-hmm. I think that would be absolute, because, and I would think that if they thought they were, if it is true what people think, that they're here to help us, or at least to guide or be aware of what's happening, then anywhere that you have such a horrible loss of death, and it's like the earth screams too. It's just because we are connected. And I think that's why when you go someplace that something horrid has happened with a great loss of life, you feel that.
Mm-hmm.
So Gettysburg almost did me in. So, but what do you think is, do you think that that's true? Do you think that they're brought there by the emotion that is being experienced by so many people? That it's like a beacon? Or do they already know?
I think they already know that an event is going to happen, and then they go into the area where the event occurs to look at people's reactions and to understand the feelings that are occurring. I'm pretty convinced of that.
Right. Seems like there would be somebody that was an interventionist on that craft. Maybe they have the prime directive, right?
Well, maybe. They don't seem to go in and take people out of craft that are about to crash or something like that.
Right.
The UFO doesn't do that, but there's a lot of stories that's being done by angels and stuff like that. There's got to be a link somewhere there, but I don't know what that is.
I was going to ask, and actually it's in my list, but since you brought it up, I feel like most paranormal experiences are related. And by definition of the paranormal, something that's not normal, ufology falls into that category. And do you feel that aliens, like we're describing here, are connected to the empaths, to their guidance? Do you feel like they're connected to angels or the negative side? So,
Wow. I believe that the aliens to get here have put themselves in touch with other dimensions, and by virtue of being in touch with other dimensions, they are also in close proximity to people who have passed on, and ghosts who are slipping the veil between the two dimensions. I think they become one and the same, and I think they become part of each other.
Well, that's interesting. Thanks for that.
I've always thought that, and I've believed it for a lot of years. And when I started to investigate how UFOs travel these great distances, not only are they opening wormholes. They are also accessing different dimensions, and they've got to be touching on the paranormal and how that interacts with all of us.
Yeah, I am just really fascinated by that concept. Because I do believe in them. I've seen craft. So I haven't had an interactive experience that I'm aware of. So, which makes it really weird that I felt so uncomfortable in that group. And the person leading the group said that's normal for experiencers who don't have a memory. That when they start being around other people who talk about it, then it gets a little bit too close to the surface, maybe.
I see what you're saying. So. Yeah, could be. And the ETs are trying to control what memories they leave you with.
Right.
And in most cases, they are very successful. They leave you with positive thoughts and positive feelings. And so at times, they even leave you with a message. The people that they don't leave with a message or with anything positive are the ones where they weren't able to totally control the situation.
In balance, that's not that many, though.
No, it isn't. It really isn't. These are the people who have told us how bad things were for them, and the people that aren't telling us those things are the people who had a good experience, and we don't hear about those.
We don't, because if it doesn't bleed, it doesn't lead.
Mm-hmm.
So, something that Sherry just posted, what's your opinion on how Bigfoot may be intertwined with aliens? I think that would be the dimensional thing again, right?
Yes. If Bigfoot exists, and I personally don't know, so that's how I'm couching the question, or the answer. If Bigfoot exists, they are traveling from point A to point B through the dimensions in which they exist. And they know how to do it because that's where they live. I don't believe that they're of this dimension.
Cool beans. Well, I have no idea. I've never actually gotten to be around where they're supposed to. But, except by accident.
I've heard a couple of stories of people that have interfaced or come very, very close to a Bigfoot, and that they have realized the gloom and doom that the Bigfoot is putting out, and I think that is a reaction to us not finding out. And they put that out, and they make us run away from it.
That's so interesting. I would make us run away, too, based on our civilization.
We have they're best off to run, yeah.
Yeah. We are at our final break, so here we go. We will be right back.
You're listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk, only on Paranormal Experience Radio, broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
Oh, come on. I'm Southern, but... Nope. That'll do. Hello. I am Kat Hobson, host of Paranormal Experience here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. I enjoy having guests from all areas of the paranormal, from ghosts to ufology to cryptids and beyond. You'll find some of the best researchers in their fields bringing you some great information. Join me on Wednesday nights from 8 to 10 p. Eastern here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
This is Jason Bland, host of Midwest Paranormal Presents Paranormal Soup, where we stream live as a webcast every Sunday night, 11 p.m. to 2 a.m. Eastern, with guests who will blow your mind. Live ghost box sessions where you can call into the show to see if the spirits will talk to you, and the world wide web of weird with the latest in paranormal news and evidence. We're bringing the weird every Sunday night, 11 p.m. to 2 a.m. Eastern on our Facebook page and YouTube channel. Don't forget to follow and subscribe.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk only on Paranormal Experience Radio. Broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
Thank you for listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. The time is 45 minutes after the hour. Welcome back to Fate Mag Radio here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. I'm Kat, your host, with my guest, Tom Conwell. And we are going to put forth a little effort here. It worked last week. I just learned how to do this. But if you want to call in, you can call 205-533-7982. 205-533-7982. That number is posted in our speaker chat, and I'm just so not used to doing it. I should have announced this earlier, but if you have a question for Tom, please feel free to call. So, Tom, I'm sorry we had to just take off for that break. Sherry said that she thinks they're all like that. You know, the dimensional, the Bigfoot, paranormal Bigfoot and aliens, they're only going to let us know what they want us to know at the time of any of the encounters.
Mm-hmm.
So,
very true. I agree 100%.
I was so fascinated because I actually tried to report one of my visual encounters to MUFON. And I've noticed that every time there's a meteor shower up, in my area, that there are two craft that come over the mountain and they just park. I mean, you see them come and they park in a constellation. So if you didn't know the constellations, you would think they were part of it. Right? But I just think that's so smart to do that. But my report didn't go through because it wouldn't upload. So I was so disappointed. I was on the phone with the MUFON director at that time, and not their head honcho, but another director. And I said, "Look, I've got the Latin longitude. Yeah, I'm using my sky map, and they're not supposed to be there. I saw them come in." He said, "Well, file a report." I said, "I am. I'm talking to you." So, so it did not work trying to file a report. But it was so interesting. And I had a daylight one too, but that was a little freaky. So I was on the phone with my daughter when that happened, and I stayed on the phone with my daughter till it ended because I did not want to be a statistic. So, do you think that they seek people, since they're monitoring, that they seek people who have an openness, maybe?
Yeah, psychic abilities. Those people are constantly putting out feelers because they're learning about their psychic thoughts and whatever else. And constantly are doing things that they're not aware of. And when the ships fly over, that's what the ETs see.
Huh.
That's my opinion, anyhow.
Well, I think there's a great chance of that because they don't communicate by voice with any abductee I've spoken with.
Mm-hmm.
It's always telepathic. So you would have to have some level of ability to be able to communicate back or to know they were communicating.
Mm-hmm.
But it's pretty interesting. And Sherry said, that's so interesting. It makes you wonder why they're there and what they're investigating. And I said they were watching the Leonids. That's what they were there for. They've been there for the parasites also. I probably didn't say that right. But I do find that they like stuff just like apparently we do.
Yep.
So it was on the peak night, and they were high enough that they didn't have any light pollution. So I was a little envious of that. But, we were going to talk Stephen Greer.
Okay.
Are you familiar with his work?
I have seen a lot of his YouTube videos.
Okay. Well, he has a Prime movie or two out as well. But doing the CE5, the human initiated contact.
Yes.
Do you feel that that is a positive or a negative thing?
I think it's certainly an attempt to be a positive thing. It wouldn't surprise me that the CE5 is possible. It wouldn't surprise me at all. And it would be more likely if you had several people in your group who are already psychic, right, and are able to extend their mind outward. Then I believe that it is likely to work. If you got a bunch of people who were not psychic together to try to reach out, I would be surprised if that worked.
Well, I'm going to tell you that Andrea Perrin also wrote a book on that topic.
Uh-huh.
And she has done that at events with, part of her group of people.
Mm-hmm.
I know that happened in Michigan. So, to me, it's just fascinating. But I don't really think I would be interested in calling them to me. I'm not sure what my take is on that yet. So, it's definitely an interesting thing to ponder. Do you open yourself up, not knowing what they really are?
I believe that my sightings, not the first one, but after the first one, were all because I decided to reach out with my mind and say, I'm ready to be contacted. The first sighting that I had was because my wife said, hey, come out and look at this. I mean, I had no idea. I was probably writing my first book, and I wasn't even thinking of it. But my wife said, "You won't believe what's up in the sky," And I went out and looked, and oh my goodness, there they were. So after that, I had already done some research about CE5, and I thought, there has to be something to this. That's when I noticed that I started to be either contacted or was allowed to see what was going on in the sky, because when each of my first 4 books were ready to be published, just prior to the date that I was ready to push the button and say done, I had a sighting. Well, there has to be a reason for that, and I think that the reason was because I made myself available and stated with my mind that now I'm open. I'm ready to see you. I don't have any firsthand knowledge of the reptilians. However, I would not be surprised that they are watching us, and there's one of the species that are indeed living underground. Having said that, they're probably the reptilians, but that's really all that I know about it. I believe that they are underground. I also believe they're also underwater, and they're also probably on the moon, and I would not be surprised if they are either oftentimes visitors to Mars and are in the area of Jupiter. Why do I think? Because Mars is kind of a foreboding place, and I think that they visit Mars frequently. They may even have an underground facility there, but there's not enough air to live on there, in my opinion, and they probably live on their ships in the next closest area beyond Earth, and that would be Jupiter.
Interesting.
I also believe that there may indeed be a presence in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter, but that's like a shooting gallery up there, and that can't be very pleasant.
Well, of course, with their technology, I would assume that they had like autocorrect.
Oh, sure. They put up a force field and let everything bounce off. But when you start doing that and living in the asteroid belt, then you're going to be generating ricochets and all that other stuff that's going to send stuff into the inner solar system. And that's not a good scenario for us.
No, it's not. Oh, gosh, we've got 1 minute. I am so glad that you were here. For everyone in chat, everyone listening, whether live or through whatever your subscription service is. We're on iHeart, Spotify, everything. Deezer, we're everywhere. But, thank y'all so much. We appreciate your support. And Tom, I love learning from you. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for having me. This was a lot of fun tonight, especially a lot of fun.
I had a great time, and I learned a lot. So, and they're saying in chat that they didn't hear me at some point. I'm not sure what that was, but we'll check into that. But again, thank you so much. And I do need to let people know that I have a haunt mess with me Wednesday night on Paranormal Experienced. I'm thrilled. I think they are so much fun. And I think you're going to love them too. So then tomorrow night, Denise is traveling. She's unavailable. So we are going to be running Michelle LeBaron's show. She has some events coming up, and we figure we'll just give her some props. Thursday is going to be, our new show, the Full Spectrum Project, and their guest is going to be Jason Offutt from Monsters of the 50 States. So Shelley will be back live on Friday, and then next Sunday, I will have Tommy Danheiser and Christy Newley. So I think that you're going to absolutely enjoy all of that. So, Tom, you're getting kudos out of chat. So
great.
Thanks again for being here.
Thank you for having me. A lot of fun.
Thank you. And before we go, I just want to say that, I close with this all the time, and I know that you know it, but be the change you want to see. We can do this. We can come together as humanity and let go of the hate, because there's so much right now. Let go of it. The only person you're hurting is you, because it eats you up inside. But, try to make the world a better place. Be the friend that you'd like to have. Be the spouse you'd like to have. Smile at children. Smile at grown-ups. We may have a mask on. They see the eyes. Your light comes from your eyes. It also comes from you. So, just be what you want. Be the change you want to see. And if you ever want to hear a really great song about that, Corey Smith did that, wrote that song specifically for some organization in Africa. But thank you so much. I love all of you. I'm praying for peace amongst us. We've got to have peace. We can't live like this. Take care of you. Take care of others, and good night. Same cat time, same cat channel. Thanks again.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk, only on Paranormal Experienced Radio. Broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.